And welcome back. Another episode, number 75, I might add, of Thursdays with Charlie. We've done this 75 times, and it's the 4th of November in 2021. Up a couple of things. Thank you very much. We had a really good All Saints Day on Monday and a good All Souls Day on Tuesday. We remembered all the saints and we remembered the souls of our faithful departed on Tuesday. Couple of upcoming events. The Christmas party, as I mentioned, is scheduled for the Riverside at the 10th of December 2021, beginning at 5 p.m. with a gathering, dinner at 6, the show at 7, and some raffles and fun at 8 o'clock. Tickets are $25 a person or $250 for a table of 10, and they go on sale this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, at all of the masses. We encourage people to get together in a group and form a table of 10. We're going to use as a theme this year the 50 states of our United States. So each table will be themed after one of the states. And if you're buying a table of 10, you can choose the table name that you would like as long as it's still available when you purchase the tickets. So we'll have some interesting state names. Those of you who buy individual tickets, when you come to the party, you'll be seated at a table and you'll have that state name as your name table for the night. But we look forward to it very, very much. Again, the tickets go on sale this weekend, the 6th and 7th of November. So be ready. And they'll be on sale both at the Riverside at the Masses and here at the church. Our Colorado River Food Bank wants to say thank you for all the people who have brought down frozen pies to them. They're still looking for more, but if you can help them out, any frozen pie, any flavor can be dropped off up until the week before Thanksgiving at the Colorado River Food Bank on Laughlin Civic Drive, just up from the Riverside. They're very, very grateful for the ones they've already received, so thank you to our parishioners. You always come through for them, and they appreciate that very, very much. Looking ahead to Thanksgiving Day, as we've done in the past, we will do a Thanksgiving Day Mass. That's Thursday, the 25th of November. We'll do a Thanksgiving Day Mass at 8 o'clock in the morning, so you'll have plenty of time the rest of the day for feasting or football watching or online shopping or however you'd like to spend Thanksgiving Day with your families and friends. So Mass will be at 8 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day, the 25th of November, up at the church. And we're also going to, as we've done in the past, donate the collection to the Colorado River Food Bank. So any monies that are placed in the box that day for the collection, we'll take care of that going to the Colorado River Food Bank to make Thanksgiving really, really pleasant for those in need. From what I hear in the news, this is going to be the most expensive Thanksgiving Day in history. The prices of every item, the turkey, the cranberry sauce, the beans, the corn, the eggs, anything being used for the dinner is going up, as are the prices of gas skyrocketing all around. So get ready for a really expensive Thanksgiving, but I hope it will be pleasant no matter where you are. The supply chain problems continue, and I'm afraid they're going to loom with us for a while yet, probably into the Christmas season and beyond. So anything you can do to get ready early, to plan for things earlier than usual, certainly worthwhile. At the Masses over the weekend, we talked about a phrase that I had heard, and I really like it. We live in a postcard. We get to live in a wonderful place that people come to, buy postcards, send home, eat in our restaurants, gamble at our casinos, go to our shows. And we get to live here, to be here frequently. Even our snowbirds get to spend several months here every year. So we came out with an interesting little parish postcard. They're available during our Masses at the Riverside and, of course, up at church all during the week. 25 cents each. We gave away free ones last weekend, but from this time on, 25 cents each. So that might be nice little cards to send your friends. You're in a postcard. You can send a postcard as well. And next week, Veterans Day is coming up. In fact, our Thursday show next week is on Veterans Day itself, so the show will be devoted to Veterans Day. But November 11th, there's also going to be several services around town, and I'm involved in both of them. at 8 a.m. on Riverwalk, behind the Pioneer, the new Pioneer. They're going to have a service at what they call the Point. It's one of the areas right behind the Pioneer, right on the river. It's actually a really beautiful location. And they set up chairs, and there'll be a Veterans Day service with music and speakers. And I'm going to be doing the prayer at that 8 a.m. Thursday, November 11th, Veterans Day. Then later on in the day at 11 a.m., the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign War, they're going to be doing a Veterans Day service at 11 a.m. Most likely it will be at the American Legion post number 60 on Bruce Woodbury Drive. It may be down at the Plaza of Flags, but as of this moment right now, it's slated for the American Legion post on Bruce Woodbury Drive, and that's at 11 a.m. As a matter of fact, November 11th, the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month, marked the armistice for World War I, and that's from what Veterans Day gets its beginnings. And so we'll be there, and I'm involved in that, doing the prayers as well. So look forward to that. It's always a good day to honor our veterans, to honor those who have served in our country and continue to serve, usually in so many other ways after they're out of the service. That whole idea of being of help, being of service, continues well beyond your military time. Immediate future, this Sunday, the 7th of November, daylight savings time ends. It's going to end at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, and that will make it confusing for the masses on Sunday. People in Nevada will turn their clocks back. We get an extra hour of sleep. People in Arizona don't need to touch anything, but they do need to remember that the people in Nevada's time has changed. And so when it's 8 a.m. in Nevada, it'll be 9 a.m. in Arizona on Sunday morning. And the same goes through. It will last until March 13th. So we have almost 4 months of different times on both sides of the river. We'll get through it. We have always managed to get through it, but it's coming up again. Just a reminder, whenever we give times at the church, or for masses at the riverside, or for our Christmas party, or anything, we are always giving them in Nevada time, because both the church and the riverside are located in Nevada. So everything will always be given in Nevada time. People from Arizona will have to adjust that on their minds. I remember that remember the watchmen at the riverside? They used to sell a wristwatch that had 2 faces, one above the other, and the top one said Arizona time, the bottom one said Nevada time, and you could just look down at your wrist and you could see what the time was wherever you were in the area. I'm not sure if the watchman still makes that available in their new location over at the mall, but it was a good idea, and it certainly kept us thinking. What I want to talk about a little bit today is patron saints. Now, we've talked about them before, but I have a special reason for wanting to talk about it today, because my patron saint celebrates his feast day today, St. Charles Borromeo. Patron saints are interesting. Virtually every day of the year has one or more saints' days connected with it. Some are really well known, like everybody knows October the 4th is St. Francis of Assisi. Not as many people know that St. Charles Borromeo is November the 4th. But other days just creep into our calendar. So many of the days of the year have saints or multiple saints associated with them, and we're just not familiar because we're not in the geographic area of that saint. I was informed recently when I was looking up some information on Father Garces. His middle name is Hermenegildo. And what a weird middle name it struck me. Why would his parents ever name him Francisco Hermenegildo Tomas Garces? I can understand the Tomas, it's Thomas, that would fit in, but where did Hermenegildo come from? Well, it turns out, a little research, that Hermenegildo is a patron saint of some regions in Spain. and the priest at the parish where Father Garces was baptized in April of 1738 had a special devotion to that saint. And so every boy who was baptized in that parish got Hermenegildo as a middle name. And that's where Father Garces got it. So he's Francisco Hermenegildo Tomas Garces. Charles Borromeo came in. I'm not sure if I'm actually named after St. Charles. That is my patron saint. I wonder sometimes if my parents didn't name me not only after my father and his father, who were Charles, but Prince Charles of England comes to mind. But most likely it was the continuation of a family name. My father's father was Charles. My father is Charles. I'm Charles. So we kept the name in the family. St. Charles Borromeo, as it turns out, his feast day is the 4th of November. And my mother liked to have celebrations. I was very lucky as a kid. I don't know if many kids are as lucky as I was even today. But we would celebrate my birthday, which was January 19th. We would celebrate with a party on my baptismal day, which was March 7th. And we would celebrate with a cake or pastry or something sweet on my feast day, which was November the 4th. And so it's kind of nice that I had like 3 special events to look at during the year, besides the normal holidays of Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving and 4th of July and all of those things. So I was very fortunate growing up as a kid to have a family who liked to get into such things. St. Charles Borromeo was born on the 12th of October, 1538. He was born in Italy. He died on November the 3rd in 1584 at the age of 46 years old. I remember remarking when I was in the seminary how very young he was. He died at 46. And I can remember when I was ordained a priest and was out in my parish, and I got to be the age of 50, and I would say, wow. At 50 years old, my patron saint had been dead already for 4 years. What have I accomplished? And look at all he accomplished in his 46 years of life. Now, I have to admit, St. Charles Borromeo had some help in accomplishing things during his life. We'll start with the fact that his uncle was the Pope. His uncle was Pope Pius IV. And that's a big help, especially if you're in Europe at the time and you're looking for a career and your uncle is the Pope. He can kind of give you a career. In fact, that's what he did for Charles Borromeo. Came from a wealthy family, but his uncle wanted to ensure that that wealth and that influence continued. So at the age of 21, his uncle, Pius IV, made Charles Borromeo a cardinal in the Catholic Church. And he was not even a priest. They just made him a cardinal. Now, fortunately, as things would go, Charles took that very seriously. And he figured, if I'm going to be a man of the church, then I should be a man of the church really. And so he went and he studied and he was ordained a priest 3 years after he had been named a cardinal. So he followed through with it, but I think it's kind of interesting that he was a cardinal for 3 years and he wasn't a priest yet. He became the Archbishop of Milan, and he was the Archbishop there from 1564 until 1584. So for 20 years, he was the Archbishop in the city of Milan. And during that time frame, there was something very important happening in our Catholic Church, which we know as the Council of Trent. I mean, I know we hear a lot about the Second Vatican Council that happened in the 1960s, and that was great, and it was important. But the Council of Trent in the 1500s was really amazing. The Council of Trent ran for almost 20 years. It wasn't just a couple of summers or a couple of years like Vatican II. Council of Trent went from 1545 until 1563. And as it turned out, Charles Borromeo, as the Archbishop of Milan for part of those years, actually was instrumental in organizing the final session of the council, the final couple of years of the council. And the Council of Trent produced the Roman Catechism, Again, we talk about the Catechism of the Catholic Church that came about as a result of Vatican II, but prior to that, the Roman Catechism existed from the Council of Trent, and it set forth in very clear terms our doctrines, and it was very, very accessible to scholars. It wasn't as accessible to the average layman, but it was accessible, and it was the model on which our current catechism was built. The Council of Trent also codified the Mass. And so when we talk about the Latin Mass or the Tridentine Mass, that idea of Tridentine comes from the word Trent, where the council sessions were held in Italy. And that Mass was codified, and it became what some people have called the Mass of the Ages. The Latin Mass, nobody for many hundreds of years expected would ever vary from the form that Trent gave it. It was a very influential council, very much concerned with our doctrine in producing the catechism, in our worship with codifying the rubrics of the Mass, and they did so many other things. Part of the reason for Trent was it followed the Protestant Reformation in 1517 and all the results, the breakaway churches, the things that happened in the Protestant world following 1517. The Council of Trent was an answer to so much of that, part of the Catholic Counter-Reformation, as many historians have called it. One of the things I like when we're talking about the various saints and influential people in our church is to look at what they've said or look at what they've written. And so I thought, in honor of St. Charles's feast today, his writings and his speeches, and many of them are preserved. He was a prolific writer and a prolific speaker, probably a lot longer speaker than I am, but prolific in the amount of times he spoke. He was instrumental in forming seminaries in Italy and in trying to get priests to become better preachers as well. And so he was very influential in that. But I like to look at some of the things he wrote or said because I think we can still learn from them today. There's to a certain extent, they're timeless. And so I have a group of quotations from St. Charles Borromeo, my patron saint, that I'd like to share with you today. If we wish to make any progress in the service of God, we must begin every day of our life with a new eagerness. What a wonderful way to get up in the morning and begin each day with a new eagerness. And Charles Borromeo says this is how we make progress in the service of God. Each day is not the same. Each day is a new beginning. Each day gives us a new start, a new idea, a new way of looking at things. And he speaks of it as eagerness. Wow, wonderful thought. I wake up in the morning sometimes and eagerness is not the first thing on my mind. Making it into the bathroom to throw cold water on my face might be the first thing on my mind. But eagerness to see what the day will bring, that's a sense of curiosity, a sense of joy that I think I can take very much from my patron saint and put into practice in my lives. If you start the day with that kind of eagerness, pretty much you're going to continue that throughout the day, and I think we'll see a lot of improvements in our service to God as well as our service to one another with that eagerness taking over our lives. Later on, St. Charles wrote, "We must keep ourselves in the presence of God as much as possible, and have no other way or any other end in our ideas or our actions than the divine honor." We must keep ourselves in the presence of God. So many of the great saints talked about the presence of God. St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, St. Catherine of Siena, a great writer and nun, St. Teresa of Avila, they all talked about keeping, St. John of the Cross comes to mind as well. We all talked about keeping in our mind the presence of God, to remind ourselves, we know we're always in the presence of God, otherwise we would cease to exist, but to remember it, to remember that every word we speak is in the presence of God, every place we go is in the presence of God, every action we take, everything we do is in the presence of God. To keep that before our minds is certainly a beautiful way to go through life, and St. Charles Borromeo reminds us of that. He continues with, we must meditate before, during, and after everything we do. We must think about what we're doing. St. John Vianney, the patron saint of parish priests, used to talk about knowing what we're going to say and saying it, being aware of to whom we're talking every time we speak, and especially if we're speaking to God. Charles Borromeo says we must meditate before we do something, while we're doing something, and after doing something. Must look back to see, well, was it helpful? How much good did it accomplish? Or was it not good for us? Do we need to do something else? Before, during, and after every action we take, Charles Borromeo says we should meditate. We should see how this fits in to the service of God in our lives. He continues, this is the way we can easily overcome the countless difficulties we have to face day after day, which, after all, are a part of our work. There's difficulties every day. We're never going to have that perfect day where everything goes our way. We have to be aware of the fact that we're in the presence of God. Sometimes things are not going to go exactly as we set out for them to be. They might be different than the way God planned them to be. But we need to be aware of that. And it all happens within the presence of God. I think that idea of keeping our minds fixed on that is so very, very important. St. Charles continues, in meditation, we find the strength to bring Christ to birth in ourselves and in others. In meditation, we find that strength. When we think about it, we can make Christ live in what we say and in what we do. This is not something that's strange to any of the other saints, and it shouldn't be strange to us that we can keep our minds so fixed on Christ that our words become His, that our actions become His. Charles Borromeo reminds us of that. If a tiny spark of God's love already burns within you, do not expose it to the wind, for it may get blown out. I think the idea of a tiny spark, a tiny flame of God's love, even if it's a little bit within us, we should be careful of it. We should cherish it. We should nurture it. We should try to encourage it. We should try to shield it from being blown out by other things that compete for our time and for our attention. Just about every day we go through life, there are things that compete. We might want to set out and say, well, I'm going to spend 15 minutes or 20 minutes praying today. And then all of a sudden we realize that, oh, there's someone at the door, or the phone rang, or I have to check my Facebook messages, or I feel hungry, or I want to get something to drink. And we get distracted so very, very easily. We need to try to pull ourselves back from those distractions as much as possible. He has an interesting example here. He says, keep the stove tightly shut so that it will not lose its heat and grow cold. We need to keep within us this presence of God, this power of God. Not so that we don't share it, but that we don't let it grow cold, that we have something to share. There's an old Latin saying, nemo dat quod non habet, no one gives what he doesn't have. We have to possess it within ourselves first so that we can share it easily and readily with others. Be sure that you first preach by the way you live. If you do not, people will notice that you say one thing and then live in another way, and they will only regard you with cynical laughter and a shake of the head derisively. St. Francis said, preach the gospel, and sometimes, if necessary, use words. Charles Borromeo is on pretty much the same page. We preach first by the way we live. People see what we do before they ever hear any words that we say. And if our words don't match what we're doing, they're going to sense that we're liars, and they're going to sense that we shouldn't be followed. We should keep that in mind no matter what our profession is in life. People notice what we do, and they remember what we do, probably more than they remember any words that we ever say. And my favorite one, stay quiet with God. Do not spend your time in useless chatter. How often we go to God and our mouths are wide open and our lips are flapping and we have so much to say. We should remember that God already knows it. Yes, it's nice for us to share it, but we are never in the position of giving God information about our lives. He knows it. How often do we go before God and just put ourselves in His presence and say, what do you want to say to me? That idea of sitting quietly in church for a little while, or sitting quietly even in our own room, and taking that time to let God speak to us is so important. And I think it's a key to great holiness of life. Many great saints have recognized this. St. John Vianney, the patron saint of parish priests, used to say, I go and I sit in the church, and I look at him, and he looks at me. I kind of a nice thought to spend that idea of a little quiet time. And if you can't spend it in church, perhaps just a quiet place in your house. We do need to turn off the cell phones and turn off the computers and just have a little quiet time without TV, without radio, without noise, to just let God speak to us. Well, that's a little insight into some of the things Charles Borromeo has written and has said. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about my patron saint. Maybe you'll get encouraged to go find a little bit about your own patron saints. Now it's time for Pascal to join us, and he comes and appropriately brings that message from Charles Borromeo. Quietam Manere Cum Deo. Quietam Manere Cum Deo. Remain quiet with God. Take the time to remain quiet in God's presence. Listen to what He has to say to you. God bless and have a wonderful week.